I am bad at playing Broken Arrow. There, I said it. Now can someone please help me out so I stop getting obliterated like this? Or like this? Or like this? Yeah, you get the point. Recently, the game's publisher, Slytherin, sent me a preview version of Broken Arrow's campaign missions and 5v5 multiplayer, and during an event for content creators, I got to try my luck against people who seem to be playing this or similar games for a very long time. Or I just suck very hard, not 100% sure which it is. I do love these kinds of games, but I never find enough time to play them often, so I will let you be the judge of my level of suck, as you watch these endless clips of my biggest failures, occasionally interrupted by accidental successes. Now, before I keep showing you how spectacularly I have failed in these matches and how much better I fared in single-player missions, I would like to mention that Broken Arrow will be released sometime in June of 2025 with single-player, multiplayer, and a tool for making scenarios for all fellow players to enjoy. But probably the most fascinating part of Broken Arrow is the ability to customize hundreds of military units with different armor, weapon systems or other gear and create your own custom decks for playing in multiplayer or PvE with the USA and Russian factions. But I would definitely like to know what you think is the best feature of this upcoming tactical RTS, so don't be shy and tell me so in the comments, where I expect to also read your tips on how to improve. The army building part of gameplay could almost be a game unto itself, considering how many pieces of equipment you can min-max and enjoy how they look like in the amazingly detailed engine, which revs up even my most powerful GPU. This is the only game that I know of which has an insane level of detail and fantastic graphics that most players will not end up enjoying if they only play zoomed out. Maybe that is why I keep losing in multiplayer as I zoom in to watch the action close up and enjoy the fireworks. Anyway, let's take a look at some of the combat encounters and situations from two multiplayer matches I played with my custom deck, which is optimized for air superiority and ground assault with some artillery and AA support. As the match was starting, my plan was to use my jets, which are armed to the teeth with air-to-air missiles, to gain air superiority above our side of the map and the middle. I was also hoping to intercept any helicopters transporting enemy troops to the middle capture points, as that is what usually happens in the opening of matches in Broken Arrow. The thing I did badly was that in an attempt to draw in enemy fighters onto ground-based anti-air systems on my end of the map, I sent my fighters onto the edge of the battlefield, but didn't count on the fact that enemy jets will be able to fire off anti-air missiles from very far away. This led to a situation where my planes were not able to launch missiles at enemies, while enemies were able to, and I lost both planes and time. I would appreciate your advice on how to open a match properly if I am to gain air superiority. Losing all three very costly planes leaves me with few reinforcement points and only my scouts traveling towards the first capture points. This is why I decided on cheaper armored vehicles to try and take more secluded control points on my own while leaving the middle map engagement to my teammates. I will of course take any advice on how you would have proceeded in this kind of a situation and what I should be focusing on after the air-to-air fight ends and I'm left with few points for new units. Since I noticed the enemy was airdropping infantry into buildings on the middle capture points, I wanted to have some fun with artillery and called in one of my heavy ones. This cost me a lot of points, and to make sure I didn't end up without ammo, I decided to spend the few points remaining to me immediately on extra supplies so the artillery unit could rearm in the field. As you can see, the enemy has already taken the middle point, so I will try to capture the one remaining neutral one with my scouts as the battle heats up on one of the flanks and especially in the middle. This is one of those moments where I love to zoom in and watch units in combat to see the effects, explosions, and appreciate the detailed maps, buildings, and the beautiful environment. The huge B-2 being blown up in the sky is just cherry on the cake here. I immediately called in a jet for air cover, but when it eventually arrived, I forgot to micro it, and it just flew into the middle of the city to get shot down by numerous enemy anti-air vehicles and infantry spread across the central capture points. This is a really bad move and something I can't allow myself to keep doing. Now, as my armored assault on the D capture point was getting close, I encountered numerous enemy positions, some in the form of armored vehicles, some as infantry in buildings, and by the time I managed to arrive at D destroying those obstacles, I was low on ammo and health of my armored fist. Interestingly enough, both my attack helicopter and enemies arrived at the same time, and we each started blowing armored vehicles sky high with missiles and rockets. I did want to save my helicopter from blowing up this time, so I chose to use both defensive tactics, flares and lowering altitude to run back. At this point I realized I was in dire need for vehicle anti-air, as I couldn't get any use out of my air superiority fighters with my bad micro and lots of enemies' own vehicle anti-air. My vehicle that had taken over D was living on borrowed time, as the enemy had 2 helicopters targeting it and I only had 1 canister of smoke left to give it cover for a time. This interplay of guided missiles and smoke screens is something I took a while to learn, but now I see just how useful it is and how much it can help you keep armored vehicles in one piece for that much longer. Now I have a cool moment of this battle to show you, as an enemy heavy bomber comes in and launches half a dozen cruise missiles onto the middle capture point my team had taken, and in the process destroys several of our units. Some of its missiles do get intercepted by our ground-based anti-air systems, and even the bomber is eventually taken down. Back at the capture point marked D, the enemy helicopters pulled back, but enemy infantry took over buildings in the middle and they had lots of anti-tank weapons. Luckily, my own armored vehicle was well equipped for such close-quarter combat and pounded the enemy infantry into oblivion even inside buildings. The end for it came with enemy battle tanks showing up and firing at it at point blank, but it did survive a bit longer due to reactive armor if I'm not mistaken. Now, I did have another one just coming in, and I had hoped to move against the J capture point, but what is of interest here is my anti-air finally doing some good. It not only intercepted an enemy missile mid-flight, but it also successfully forced enemy planes off the area. Now it was time for round 2 at point D, as I had new armored vehicles coming in. In hindsight and watching this, I realized I wasn't using enough infantry. It was a capture point surrounded with lots of buildings, and having infantry to capture those and fire out of them would have been a great benefit. At least that is what I think. You can tell me your opinions in the comments below. As the close quarters combat between vehicles continued, I definitely could have used my position better and not lost my vehicles so quickly. The situation on D was changing by the minute, as one moment it was me attacking it and in the other I was defending it. Not only did I hide in the corner of 2 buildings trying to survive enemy attacks, but as I outflanked enemies and attacked them from above with my helicopter, they started hiding at the exact same spot. Instead of taking the longer way and attacking from the other side, I flew the helicopter right above them and lost it for no good reason. Lessons learned, I hope. This did turn into a minor victory for my team, but you can see in the statistics just how badly I did, losing twice as many units than I destroyed. Next, let's take a break from multiplayer 5v5 madness and jump into some sections of the single-player missions, one for each faction. Interestingly enough, both let you start with a power trip, as in the Russian mission you get to storm a power plant with a massive helicopter assault and blow up the place and all its defenders. While in the USA Factions mission, you roll in with a bunch of aircraft to try and use brute force against an enemy base swarming with anti-air vehicles. It would be an understatement to say I did much better with the helicopters than planes. Obviously, I need to learn a lot more about air combat and its rules in Broken Arrow. Later combat engagements with infantry entrenched in buildings as enemy light and armored vehicles kept attacking from multiple directions finally taught me how valuable infantry can be when you properly stack it in buildings and wait for enemy vehicles to come and eat your RPGs and anti-tank missiles right in the face. As you probably guessed, in the other multiplayer match I didn't do much better. And since I already showed you many of my fails in the intro, I won't make you watch them again. I just hope you enjoyed this gameplay overview and plan to get this game on release, or at least to wishlist it and wait for the opportunity to get it at some point. Thank you for watching and happy gaming!